That's why.
Yeah.
Just radio.
I think it's just radio. And I think a lot of other morning shows did it for a while in like bigger markets. And I just don't think in the end, it all comes down to ad revenue. If the sales staff can sell it, they'll find a way to do it. And that probably hasn't come across their radar screen yet. So,
yeah, ad spots, that's the name of the game, right?
Money.
You just got to fill time.
I remember when I had an internship at KNBR down in San Francisco and moved up here and I got hired by the radio station. I had all the stuff I wanted to do and talking about ratings and how people be interested. And my guy, he's just like, JB, if you want your boss to approve it, you got to tell him how it's going to make him money. It's that simple. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, that's the key to a lot in life is framing it for the other person. Don't come at it, especially job interviews, why you should hire me because I'm so great, but how I'm going to make you money and what I can do for you and what I can do for this business.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a business. They want to make money. What a concept. And
not just a business. Radio today is, I would imagine, incredibly competitive because there's not a lot of people out there anymore.
It's definitely changed a lot. I mean, when I got into this, I started in 2000 and, you had radio, TV, print. And this was a crazy market because Eureka is a small market by volume. But at one point, you got to figure you had all the different radio stations plus 2 newspapers. If you go back to the Eureka Reporter and the Times Standard, this pre-social media, TV, you've got, North Coast News and KIM doing their thing. And then you had CBS was doing their thing. So very competitive. And then, social media came in and I think has definitely changed the game. And I thought it would have hurt, but I think it also helped with local radio because if, people can listen, they can get music or different stuff wherever they want. But if you want to know what's going on in Humboldt County and you're going to work in the morning, your choices are limited. So that's where we try to make our magic.
Are you guys putting the morning show out online too? Or is that just broadcast?
No, it's all online. So we've got, Bicoastal Media's got 5 radio stations and they're all between apps and websites online. Yeah.
Has it been weird watching that change? I mean, 24 years is a lot of time to put into this.
It is. I don't know. It just doesn't happen overnight, right? So you just kind of notice it as it goes and it evolves. I think definitely the market share gets cut into or things like that. I mean, you just notice different stuff, right? Like sometimes back in the days with Pete Meyer, you'd say something or make somebody laugh or say something stupid. You'd hear about it from a lot of people. And, it doesn't happen to that extent anymore, but that's okay too.
That's got to be one of the downsides of a local community or a small community because everything that gets said, any joke that's cracked on air, everybody's going to hear it.
Well, yeah, I think the hardest part isn't so much that. The hardest part is just the sensitivity level of what you can say. Like when I first got into radio, it's like, okay, just make sure you don't cuss on the air and you'll be fine. And then as it goes, you got to be careful who you can offend by saying what or things that you didn't even think were offensive. And so I think the disappointing or what I don't like about the medium as much anymore as it's changed is I find myself thinking a lot more about something I'm going to say before I say it. And I wish I had the gravitas to maybe just let loose more often, but my goal when I get up in the morning isn't like, oh, how can I get reactions or how can I get a rise out of people? I think still to this day, it's what my first boss told me is like, JB, our goal is, and talk about things changing. I want people to listen to your news in the morning. So if they're at the water cooler at work, they're not missing what's going on, right? Like I'm not trying to be Walter Cronkite or anything like that, but you're just trying to keep people informed. And now people don't even go to work anymore. So I doubt water coolers even happen.
Yeah, everybody's working from home now.
Exactly. So
I bet that transition has been pretty apparent from what you can say to what you can't say. And that sensitivity level.
Absolutely. Just the reaction. Like when I first started doing it, I noticed there were certain areas of groups that you definitely, if you touched, like there's much more. You can't make fun of everybody the same. Let's put it that way. Because you would notice different reactions if you took shots at, different, just whatever, whoever you were picking on or making fun of, right? Because if it's a joke, it's at the expense of somebody, period. So whose expense that was may change the reaction of what you get. Okay, so be it, so much. So like if you're going to make a joke about whomever, there could be a price to pay. But now just little stuff like, heck, I don't even know pronouns or them, they, or if, you just say, oh man, there were chicks or something like that's like derogatory now. You got to really be careful on what you say. So for me, I guess that's always like, I love sports more than news. News is more important. I get it. But like if somebody, I remember years ago, I don't know if you remember, there's a story The family was out at the beach, I think around Oric. Dog went in the water, and the kid went in, then like the dad went in, the mom went in. They all died. The dog came out, and like the girlfriend of their sister, I forget it was, sat there and watched. Anyways, and I gave the story the following Tuesday or Monday, basically going off the sheriff's report. And I included that the dog lived. I thought that was a crucial part of the story, kind of like maybe helping other people. Like, don't go in the ocean chasing your dog. And a friend of the family like came in. She came to the station that morning and just screamed at me and was so mad. And she's like, that doesn't matter. And it's tragedy. And it was. It's a tragedy and it totally sucked. And news is serious. Sports is fun. Like, you can be like, hey, I think the Dodgers suck. The Cowboys. Like, I took shots at the Cowboys yesterday after those. Like, in the end, it's sports fandom. That's part of being a fan. And I guess that's what I always loved about sports was nobody's going to lose any sleep over it when it's all said and done. Whereas news can be, it affects people in a different way.
It's a little more touchy.
Absolutely. I mean, it's people's lives, you know?
But that is an important part of the story. Even if you just take it at, okay, don't go into the ocean after your dog.
Right. I mean, it was tragic, right? Like, these people died going in after their dog. And I think if anybody's ever had a pet, like, they understand, right? Like, you get it. And that's hard to sit there and watch, I'm sure, your pet. But I for me personally, when I gave the story, I thought it was a crucial part of the story. And you're hoping maybe people won't make the same mistake twice. So, and I get it. For the lady, it was raw. She was upset. And, you know, so be it. But
she was a friend of the family, you said?
Yeah, she was a friend of the family. And she literally came down Humboldt Hill, knocked on the door, and just like screamed at me. And so that's stuff hard. And then there's other stuff, you know, I mean, people, just little random stuff. Like, I remember one time talking about the medium in the center divide of a freeway. And of course, it's a median, not a medium. And just like people, you're an idiot, you're a moron. And it's like, all right, whatever. I misspoke. Shoot me.
Yeah, that you got to just brush to the side because people are always going to want to nitpick stuff like that.
Right? Well, yeah, I think yes. And that goes for anything. Right? I remember I had a football coach when I played at Humboldt State, Doug Atkins, and he was like, remember, you're never as good as you think. Things are never as good and never as bad. So when you'll get people too like, oh, I listen to you on the radio. I think you're great. Okay. I'm not great. Take it with a grain of salt. Take it great. So that same token too, the next two people who tell you what a dipshit you are on the radio, you don't let that bother you too much either. So yeah,
you almost have to
working for a living.
Oh yeah, well, and you get to talk. You're using your voice,
right? And so well, you've been doing this for what, almost 4 years now, and that's I think the beauty of radio over television. Let's say, so like back in 2000s when I'm coming into it, it's like, all right, what kind of sports do you want to get into, or news for that matter? But like if you're limited to a half-hour newscast. In theory, I know it's a lost art, but you stick to the facts, you report the news, and you move on. And if you're the sports guy, you've got 3 minutes. And, you know, the morning radio, you've got a 4-hour show, you got stuff to fill, and you can go off subject, and you can talk about, instead of just saying the Chiefs beat the pants off the Bears, you can go dig deep around Taylor Swift being at the game and all these Swifties going nuts, and then it's Travis Kelce, this, that. Or the other, but more importantly, that stuff would be more fun if we're having those conversations, whether, you know, it's the milk can game and it's Fortuna versus Ferndale and people get fired up. Because anytime I think you can be local, I think that's the key. Just like I'm sure with your podcast, right? You want to be local. If you're trying to do a podcast competing against, I don't know, whoever the biggest podcasters are, the All In or Joe Rogan or Caller Daddy, whatever it may be, that's going to be a tough one to go up against. They've got the audience and they got the national thing. Whereas if you can carve out a niche for yourself locally, you might be onto something, in my opinion.
But even with that amount of time, 4 years or 20 years, you're going to say something.
Absolutely.
Multiple somethings.
Absolutely.
And then they're just out there.
Absolutely.
And you have to find a way to say, okay, that's in the past. We're going to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what's daring, and I'll give you credit for, right? Like, you're putting it out there, then it's out there forever. For the most part, when I say something on the radio, it goes in their ear and then they got to stick it in their memory bank. Like, we thank God it's small market radio and they don't keep stats of like when I worked at KMBR in San Francisco, which was at the time was like the major sports station in America, everything that went over there got recorded and they had copies of it. So if there are any issues, and, you know, God bless small market radio, for the most part, when it's gone, it's gone. And that's something I was too, like, people could get upset about something you said on the radio or think you're a moron, but they get over it. Whereas back in the day, like print, or now it's, you know, blogs or websites, or if you write it, I think human nature, if you read something, you're much more inclined to believe it opposed to something that you hear, in my opinion.
It just seems more official. You took the time to actually write it down.
Right, you wrote it
didn't just
down,
say
there it is, and it's not going anywhere. Like, boom, wrote it down, fact. So, yeah, and that's why I think a lot of misinformation gets put out online because people, oh, well, it's got to be a fact. I read it somewhere. And, well, you know, back in the day, I'm not saying newspapers were always putting out facts, but they did have to answer to people. And there were paychecks involved. And then, you know, now that anybody can put a blog out, you can essentially say what you want. But at some point, as a consumer, you have to separate the difference in what is what.
You have to do that across all mediums now. It's not even just, okay, the internet, take it with a grain of salt. Now you have to take the news with a grain of salt. You have to take newspapers, these trusted organizations. Everything now has to be looked at through this lens of, okay, is this, who wrote this?
Right. I mean, in the end, right, like journalism for years was report the facts. Like when I went to journalism school, you were supposed to report the facts and keep your opinion out of it. Well, now, like, I mean, news, it's, you know, you look at, you know, the different nationals like MSNBC, CNBC, Fox, like go to the gym, right? And all three will be on the TV. They're all covering the same story. It's three completely different stories that you're getting because, you know, they've got a base that they're trying to get to and meet advertisers and do all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, become very biased. And true journalism, you're not supposed to put your opinion in a story unless it's clearly stated opinion piece. And I mean, come on now, those days are definitely gone.
Yeah, now it's just the reality news aspect. It's like we went from reality TV to, okay, this isn't enough. Let's make everything reality TV. The news, just daily life. People are just live streaming everything they do throughout the day.
Oh, it's nuts. Like, how about those two kids that killed that guy on the bike the other day in Vegas?
Videoed
like,
it.
They freaking videotaped and thought it was fun. I'm just like, I'm blown away. Like, yeah, if you go on the internet, you can find anything and people will videotape anything. And it's bananas when you think about it.
Well, who would think, first off, to do that? Second off, to video yourself doing that live and put it out there. Say, yeah, I did this.
Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe that's fortunately for me,
insane.
and I feel blessed that I did not grow up in the world of social media and cell phones and things of that nature, because thank goodness that things I did as a dumb kid were not. Yes, please. Thank you, sir.
I forgot to bring that up at the beginning. Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
And just being so, like, I guess you grow up in that area too. And I think what has, I don't know, it's helped me, but something I'm conscious of with anything I put online or social media, like learning before social media, there are consequences for things that you say and do that are be consumed by other people. And I'm always blown away that like what people are willing to share on Instagram and Facebook and like bro, slow your roll. Like once that's there, it's going to be out there. And you don't think like whether you're going for a job interview or you meet somebody, you're trying to land a date, they're not going to like throw your name in social. I mean, everybody gets to do background checks these days. It's like, yeah. And then those kids, they're laughing like, oh, I'm going to get a slap on the wrist and it'll be done. And it's like, bro, your life is toast. Like, let's say he did get out of jail in 30 years. What's going to become of him? Like, all you're going to do, oh my God, that's the guy that hit the guy and killed him. You're toast.
Well, just for what reason? I mean, you're just driving, I get you're hot riding around with your buddy, but to hit this guy who's just riding I mean, what? That's back in my day. I'm pretty young still.
How old are you?
25.
Okay.
Everyone was afraid that it was going to be video games. The video games were going to make people more brutal, that violence was going to translate from these video games, from Grand Theft Auto into the real world. I think it's social media. I think it's this desire to get famous or the desire to get clicks, to be sensational, that you're just going to do whatever because it's not tangible anymore, because you can see everything online.
Yeah, it's kind of a sickness or a disease, and I'm guilty of it. I'll be the first to admit, like if I post something on Instagram, like it makes me feel good when I get a like or somebody's like, oh, that looks so cool. So, God forbid you find yourself in a place where you wake up and it's like, how am I going to get clicks, or how am I going to become,
TikTok famous,
or, an Insta celebrity so I can basically hawk, vitamins all day and become rich and not have to go to work. And I don't know. I mean, two-door psychologist JB Mathers says that I think, unfortunately for kids, a lot of stuff like, right, they want, and hey, those guys are right. I mean, I read about them on TMZ today. Okay, who was Kim Kardashian, Taylor Swift, and these two idiots. I don't think that's probably when they're sitting in jail cell. I imagine they'll regret it. But yeah, it's tough when I think you find yourself, and I do worry about, and I don't have kids, but if I was a kid or a parent, like I'd be nervous. Like, I hope you're not valuing yourself or what you do based on how many clicks you're going to get or how many followers you have or, likes. And yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, I don't know where we go from here. If this is our baseline right now and technology's not even close to where it's going to be in 10 years, what does that look like? The world's just burning.
Yeah, it's a great, well, I think, if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy.
I haven't seen it.
The first time I saw it, I was like, this is hysterical. And then like the next time you start seeing where we're going as a society, you're like, oh my God, this is not good. This is tragic. But, basically just talk. I mean, the president of the United States is, a reality TV star. What a concept, right? Like that would never happen. And the movie that wins like, Oscar for Best Picture is like an hour and a half of farting. Like it's just like the de-evolution of society. So watch it sometime. It's either funny or sad, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, I don't know where you go. I think about one of my coworkers, Jace, who was Jace on air at Power 96. Right? He was showing me, whatever, Nick, if you had called me and left me a 10-second voice message, he can put it into AI and replicate your voice. And it's like, okay, I mean, take your pick on the things that can go wrong with that. But whether it's somebody pretending to be me to do dumb stuff or you or whomever. And I mean, you can get anyone's voice, right? Just leave a message or whatever. But at the same token too, what if like my employer doesn't need me anymore? Cause they're like, hey, we have JB's voice and we could get him to do like actual news and not his moronic comments that go with, I mean, who knows, right? It's just, we're at the infancy of all this stuff. And I've before played around, like, I'll be like, okay, write me a 60-second newscast that involves these stories. And thank God they haven't perfected that yet.
Well, that's what's going on with the writer's strike right now, or the actor's strike, is they don't want, there was some clause where the studios wanted to be able to use their likeness. So they would come in for a shoot and then in perpetuity, they could use their image for anything.
Well, I think Bruce Willis, if my understanding is right, he or his family sold his likeness moving forward. Because I think, he's ill now and he can't act. And after he's gone, and we've seen it with different movies with the AI. And look, I think it's tough if you're the writers, because I saw the writers in their strike put in, you cannot use artificial intelligence. Oh, there's no turning that back. Like, we have to figure out, I think, twofold, how to embrace it and how to protect ourselves. Like, dude, I've seen Terminator 2. I've seen this story before. I know how it goes.
I never thought about it for radio, though. Does that worry you a little bit, that they're just going to create these AI?
I mean, no, because if they do, there's nothing I can do about it, right? Like, you have to, I think you have to evolve constantly. And, 15 years ago, radio was my life and that's all I wanted to do. And then, at some point you realize, well, one of two things or you got a couple choices. You can try to go to a big market where you can actually make some money. Well, twofold, not talented enough. And then that's tough because you live and die by a ratings book every quarter. Well, the good news about small market radio is you're not living or dying essentially by a ratings book. Like, there are ratings, but I don't think anybody cares. Nobody sells advertising based on ratings unless it's like, do a National or Safeway or something like that. It's really built on relationships. So like for me personally, probably, 12, 13, 14 years ago now, I also got into real estate. Here, because I love Humboldt County, I love Eureka, and it's like, okay, how can I stay here, but also, make a decent living and try to have a decent quality of life? So I just personally think you have to evolve or figure things out. I mean, if they figure out how to do AI radio, trust me, I'm not going to be the one stopping it. So you just have to come to grips and hope you're in a position where you can survive in whatever the battleground looks like.
Yeah, adapt or die, right?
I think you're right. I definitely think you're right in that concept or that case.
Well, it's interesting that, these were problems that people didn't have to worry about 5 years ago. And then now they're here.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, you're almost walking this tightrope as the tightrope is coming out. So you don't really know where the next step's going to be, but
you know it's coming. You don't know what it looks like.
You know it's coming.
Yeah. It's hilarious, right? Like, now you get you can tell when somebody has like responded via an email or something with AI. I'm like, bro, dude, I know you. Like, you can never write this good or be this thorough or do something. So it's like, okay, is AI gonna like devolve to be more like us or not? So, but again, it's at the infancy, and I'm sure it's only going to get better, and they're going to perfect it. And to what effect that happens, I don't know. I mean, I guess I just hope we can embrace it and use it in our best interest and make it a benefit and a tool and not a detriment.
Have you seen the TikTok trend where people are pretending to be AI, just these NPC characters?
I have not. So I do enough things that waste my time on my phone. So I've not gotten on TikTok. Not to say I'm against it or I'm old curmudgeon guy. I'm just like, JB, like I get that weekly report from my phone and it's embarrassing how much time I spend on it. So I'm like, I do not need to waste any more time on my phone. So no, the only thing I've seen is like, I've seen stories of like AI, like Instagram models or people, and like people like fall in love with these things and they don't exist. Well, back to my buddy Jay, so he's working the words. He was having so much non-luck, you could say, in the Eureka dating pool. He gave up and was like literally had like an AI girlfriend, and he would text her and do all this stuff, and it came with like videos, I guess, or stuff. And I'm like, this is a joke, right? And he's like, no, I'm serious. And then the best part was she eventually dumped him too.
Oh, no shit.
God, you got dumped by your AI girlfriend. That is awesome.
Damn, how does that work?
It's a great question. I also have not, I have not delved in the AI girl. I think it's true. I guess she's realistic. She got tired of his shit too.
Yeah, something's got to go sideways for you, especially if you're paying for the service and she dumps you.
That's not good.
That's a wake up call.
Not good at all. Yeah, that's maybe it's time for therapy or an AI therapist instead of an AI girlfriend.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself some tough questions at that point.
A lot to ask. No doubt about it.
Well, this NPC trend, these people are live streaming themselves on TikTok.
Okay.
And they're pretending to be non-player characters, which is NPCs.
Okay.
And so they're just saying phrases depending on if someone donates X amount of money or not. And so say you donate $5, it's a hot dog, they'll say something about a hot dog. And the whole point is to pretend you're not a real person, I guess, and you're just saying these phrases as people are donating, but they're making an insane amount of money doing this. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars for maybe an 8-hour stream.
Dude, we're in the wrong business. Holy jeez. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's news to me. Again, like if I had it figured out and I knew it got the clicks, or I could figure out a way to say hot dog and make $10,000 for 8 hours, sign me up. I'm in.
Would you do it? If you've tried it and people were into it
and I'm making $10,000 in 8 hours? Yeah, absolutely. Come on. I'd ride that pony for a while. I mean, is it hurting anybody? I don't know. Because I'm trying to figure out the whole concept of it. But yes, if I could go on some sort of stream and say, trust me, I'm trying to figure out how I can get paid tens of thousands of dollars for 8 hours of work, and speaking, hey, more power to you. That'd be fantastic. Pay a lot better in radio, that's for sure.
That's the crazy part, is you're making a ridiculous amount of money, but you're not really doing anything.
And maybe that gets back to the conversation we were having, a few minutes ago about kids trying to get clicks and, who wants to wait tables, or who wants to pound nails, or who wants to be a podcaster when you can go and say, hot dog for 8 hours and get paid, 10,000, or you get, a certain amount of likes, or you see, Kim Kardashian gets paid, X amount of dollars, but like there are not a lot of Kim Kardashians out there. I've got a buddy, his wife sells some type of jewelry that's like accessories for Apple Watches. And their whole marketing scheme is, and they have this like PR company, and there's just like a set list. Like, okay, if this person has X amount of followers, they will wear the watch or the jewelry and, hashtag it for, I don't know, $5,000. If you want them to talk about it, it's like $20,000, and it depends. And I'm just like, total bananas to me that's the way it's happening, but apparently that's the way it's happening.
Are a lot of people in radio trying to branch into that? Not necessarily the TikTok NPC thing, but just the media side of it?
That I don't know. I mean, I think, for a lot of people, they're trying to combine the two, or, look, where I work, I would say no. It's small, bi-coastal. The guys I work with Ron Treherne. He likes to do his social media stuff. Lugnut, who's the new morning show guy, I think he just plays around through the social media, branded under the station. And then the rock and roll burly man, like he literally just got an iPhone and like I have to show him how to text. So I wouldn't say it's big there. I recently went down, Oakland A's had a media day, and they're an interesting group, right? For a while, they were completely off the radio and went only digital. And I ran into a guy who I used to, Chris Townsend, shout out. I used to work with at KNBR back in the day. And he was just talking about really how, the big market, even there, radio had really, really changed. So I think for radio personalities, TV personalities, I think they're just trying to figure out. I don't think the game is necessarily changed, or excuse me, the medium has changed, right? They're still trying to be talking heads and want to have hot takes or say interesting stuff and have people react and find an avenue where they can get paid. But 20 years ago, you could do that just on the radio, just on the newspaper, just on the TV side. But now it's a convoluted market, and the way you used to have to break through is you had to impress a boss or find somebody that was going to willing to give you the column space, the airspace to go on. Well, now you don't. That's been cut out, right? Like you can start. You can have your own Instagram page, your own TikTok, your own podcast, whatever it may be. So the market's completely flooded. So the question is, how are you going to separate yourself? How are you going to get noticed? How are you going to, be different than the rest so you can have a following? And my buddy's wife will hit you up so you wear the watch on your podcast and be like, this is Nick. I'm rocking the gold member watch, and you get it $5,000 for it. And quite frankly, I don't think she cares if your content is trash or it's the greatest thing ever. Are people watching it? Are you interesting? And so that probably gets us again. Why are people doing ridiculous, stupid stuff, hitting people on their bikes so they can get likes? And they're 16 or 17, so they're probably not thinking about the consequences that go with it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody that young really is. You're just thinking about doing the thing.
No, like when I was 16, I wanted to know all I could about girls. I wanted to hang out with my friends, and that was either, playing a Nintendo or shooting hoops or wiffle ball, whatever we were doing. And what's mom cooking for dinner? Like, I couldn't imagine like the extra being thrown on of like having the ability to get outside of my bubble, right? Like my bubble at that time, it existed of the people you went to school with in your nucleus or the people around your neighborhood. I did not have the ability to be like, to broadcasting, to Montgomery High School, much less the rest of the United States or the rest of the world. So I think that's a lot more to grasp. And in the same token too, I don't think young people are embarrassed about the same stuff that I would have been embarrassed about. Like,
I don't know if they're embarrassed at all.
I know. Like for me, my worst nightmare of high school was like, is my zipper down? Am I going to get pantsed at recess? Or, that's the stuff. It's like a major ordeal. And now you see like it's the shit they're willing to do online. And I'm like, I'm mortified for them. And they're just like, whatever. And then I guess I'm the old fuddy-duddy because I don't think people in their age group seem to give a shit or have like that big of a reaction. It's just, Jimmy being Jimmy or doing whatever he may be. Whereas, for me, maybe that was a deal killer. But for them, it's Tuesday.
Do you think the idea of this gatekeeper and kind of someone who lets people into these positions, do you think that was valuable back in the day?
You mean like a boss?
Yeah, like a boss, but you were talking about you had to impress somebody and then that person opened this door for you.
I think you had to be accountable, right? You had, in the end, like whether you want to say it or not, it's a business. The Time Standard was there to make money. Bicoastal Media was there to make money. And in the end, I know that if I go on the air and just utter complete bullshit, there's a good chance I'm going to get fired and I will not have a paycheck. Now, if I'm, some dipshit with the phone, I can go on, there's freedom of speech, but there's not freedom of consequences. So again, if you wrote that article, you had to be accountable for that article. If anything I say on the radio, I have to be accountable for to my boss if I want to see that next paycheck. And I think, if a kid's 16, they don't have to be accountable anyway, except for probably their mom and dad. Okay. And who knows what that looks like. But where does their accountability come down the line? You know, I mean, that's probably going to come back, or I would think that probably comes back to haunt them. I think it's safe to say that those kids that hit the guy on the bike, that's going to haunt them for the rest of their lives. Okay. So that's how they're going to be accountable. But at that time, I don't think they thought about the accountability. And I think that's a big difference is, you know, you just look at Twitter or X or whatever it's called or whatever, Instagram, all this, you see so much bullshit online that is not fact. There's no basis, but people have 100,000 followers and they're just going to say shit and then people eat it up, but there's no accountability. Like, I mean, back in the day, if Walter Cronkite was a big deal because he was accountable and the people trusted him and he made CBS probably a shit ton of money because he was the man. Now I get it. That's changed. Like news anchors, I don't even know if I could tell you like who the major news anchors are. Like back in the day, right? Like you had Walter Cronkite and then, you know, Tom Brokaw and Peter Jennings. And that was like a staple of, because that's where you got your news, right? Like you got the paper in the morning, then you have to watch the evening news at night. And obviously that has totally been blown completely out of the water. But I just think it comes back to accountability. Like back when there were only so many avenues, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but there was accountability from your boss. Because if you cost the boss money, your ass was out of a job. Period. And now, who are you accountable to?
Yeah, I don't have any of that accountability. I could come on here and say whatever. The guest can say whatever. My only accountability, if I have some, is to myself. And the idea that I don't want to just come out here swinging from the hip just to spread bullshit.
When I first got started in radio, I got a flat tire one day. And I couldn't afford to get it fixed. Like I was just fresh out of college. I didn't have money. Just started radio. So I happened to break down or get the flat tire near a tire store. And like for this radio, I will not mention them. And I went over and was like, hey, can I borrow, you know, your jack so I can change the tire in my car? And they basically laughed me out of there. Like, you got money? I was like, I don't have any money. And they just like laughed and told me to take a hike. So I was pissed. I went on the air the next morning and fucking unloaded on that business, right? I'm like, I'm going to show these guys. And I unloaded on them. And I thought I was being justice and right. And maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. In my opinion, I was being right. But in the end, what I did was I heard a colleague of mine whose client that was. And they said, fuck off. We're not going to advertise with you guys anymore. We heard that, you know, guy this morning talking shit about our business. And it's like, I learned very young that there's accountability for what you say. So it's like, so that's like, I noticed that you'll see people on Facebook all the time, right? Like I went to this restaurant and they this or they that. And again, they don't have to be accountable, but like, I know I learned at a young age in radio that like, you got to be careful what you say. And it's not about, look, were they right or wrong? At the time, I thought they were wrong. In hindsight, they're a business. They're there to make money. They're not there to lend out jacks. You know, I should have probably just shut up and kept my mouth shut, but I didn't. And they stopped advertising. And so that hurt the bottom line of the station. I was fortunate enough to keep my job. And then one of my coworkers, who was client, he was obviously bent out of shape with me because, you know, I cost him money and he works on commission. But, you know, that's a lesson I learned early. And, you know, you just think twice before you covet somebody and somebody's livelihood. And like the right thing would have been, in my opinion, is to call that place and say, hey, I don't appreciate what happened yesterday. Just as a person, not to go, you know, full blast. Like it's nuts what people do now. Like I hear these stories of people who will leave like 1-star Yelp reviews and businesses calling and threatening and this, that, and the other. But I do think, so the flip side, right? I think it is good that businesses have to be accountable to their customers. Like now, back in the day, you just had to worry about that food critic coming in and giving you a bad review. Now, every single person who walks into your business, they possibly could go on social media, Yelp, Google, whatever, and say things that they didn't appreciate about their experience at your business.
Well, not even if they are patrons of your business. How about that case where the MyPillow guy went to that Mexican restaurant and people flamed the Mexican restaurant just for taking a picture with the guy? Regardless of your politics, they didn't do anything. It's not, the service wasn't terrible. They didn't have cockroaches coming out of their food. They just took a picture with a semi-famous guy. I felt really bad.
I think it was Trace Picos or whatever. And yeah, I felt, here's a guy who comes in. Well, I mean, classic example. 2019, I met Donald Trump on a golf course. I took a picture. I literally was just golfing with friends in Ireland. Okay. And I wanted to take a photo to document. It was a bananas day, like Secret Service, like without a doubt, probably the craziest day of my life. So I just wanted to document it. I got a picture with him. I posted it. People lost their shit. I didn't make an opinion about Donald Trump. I didn't say anything. I just said, hey, I met the president of the United States. This was nuts. I didn't say I love Donald Trump. I didn't say I hate Donald Trump. I didn't say a goddamn thing about Donald Trump. Okay, so I posted it on my Facebook and my Instagram. And so there's, in general, right? Like if you follow me, you're a friend of mine. People were some friends were like, hey, I think that's the greatest thing ever. And then others were like, you're the devil. Well, News Channel 3, Manny Machado was working there at the time. He was the news director, and he took the photo and made a news story on it. Well, when it goes on KIM Channel 3's, those people aren't my friends. And I remember sitting in the airport and my buddies are reading the comments on Facebook. I said, just stop. I can't handle it anymore because people were just crushing me. Like they hated Donald Trump. And so they were going to tunnel that hatred at me. So back to the Trace Picos, like Mike, the pillow guy is famous, right? Like whether you like his politics or don't like his politics, as a Humboldt County resident, I appreciate that they took a photo with somebody famous. I'd be like, wow, interesting. That guy was in town. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But yeah, people like boycott that business. Why would you boycott a business? Are you really telling me that they should have told that guy, sorry, you can't come in? Was this 1950? You're going to tell
exactly
people
what they wanted.
Well, that's unfortunate. And it's probably not just exclusive to Humboldt County, but there's so many people, at least in this community, like the pitchforks are out. Like go to any of the local news outlets or go on the social media stuff. And like anytime, something happens that may be progress for our community, there's just going to be the same. It's like rinse and repeat of the pitchforks are out and how dare they? And like, why is hurting that Mexican restaurant? Okay, you don't like the pillow guy's politics? Don't buy his fucking pillow. Okay? But don't shit on this poor restaurant who these people are trying to make a living, And I would hate to be in a place. I would hate to be in a community where we are turning people away because of what they believe. And I would attest, if you ask most people that, they would probably agree with that statement. Yet, the My Pillow guy walks in because he wants to have some food. God forbid he's driving down 101. He's hungry. And literally, like, people like, oh, we should boycott it. Okay. No.
Yeah, what do you get out of that?
What did you do? What did you do by hurting a local business?
I wonder how many of those people were locals versus people that just saw it and were just pissed at the My Pillow guy and wanted to attack something.
Right.
Guilty by association.
So fine, talk shit about the My Pillow guy then if that's your deal. But don't hate on the restaurant and don't hate me because I was on a trip of a lifetime in Ireland and bumped into Donald Trump. Like he was the sitting president of the United States. I don't care if it was Donald Trump, Obama, Bill Clinton, Abraham Lincoln. Like, how many times have you got a chance to meet a president of the United States?
None. I would definitely take a picture with one.
I would have, as if I followed you, Nick, and I'm going to follow you now, of course, I think that's cool, or that's an interesting experience. And I would hope that you would share that with the rest of us. And, if, you hate the guy, then maybe I'd have the shots of whoever you took the shots with, but I wouldn't be like, oh, Nick, what are you doing? You're a terrible, I'm never listening to your podcast again because, you sleep on my pillow or whatever. So I don't know. I don't understand people. Let me be first to admit that.
Well, that's almost kind of the flip side to this accountability thing, is it's not just accountability in your actions for the greater good, you could say. It's accountability for any cause, any means, any subjective opinion. So like, what if you posted that picture and your boss comes down and says, hey, this is bad for the news station, we can't have you anymore. And then you lose your job.
Yeah.
Because you took a picture with the president.
Which is, now that in hindsight, right, that could have been, I don't think the Donald Trump hatred was as bad as it is now. Honestly, I was very naive to it. I was just like, I mean, how often do you go somewhere and you have to go through Secret Service? I mean, I documented the whole thing, the Secret Service, the war shit. Like, it was bananas. But would I think twice about it now? Yes. I still have the photo up. Okay. So that's, I guess, I'm of the opinion now, like, trust me, when it pops up in my memories, I'm not like going, hey, look at this. But it's there. Like, you know what? If you have a problem with it, my opinion is fuck you. That's something that happened in my life. And it's a day I will never forget, to say the least. So, but yeah, I could totally see people, and you hear stories, right? People losing their jobs because of, I guess, who they associate with. Or yeah, if I had a boss who was, upset about that, then I could totally see that happening. And I guess my justification would be like, I don't want to work at a place where, they're going to do some, but at the same time too, like, I need a paycheck and I got bills to pay. So thank God it happened in 2019.
Yeah, before all this, right? I wonder what the reception would be now. Probably what it was, but just amplified.
I think it'd just be amplified, right? Like, kind of as I feel we are as a community, or whether it be, a nation, like, twofold, right? Like, one of the sayings, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Like, I just feel like people are going farther in each direction, and you just have to be louder and louder. And again, how do I get likes, or how do I get my views? You got to have the hottest take going. So my take's got to be hotter. Don't worry about it, whether it's true or not. You just got to have the hottest take that people are going to be like, oh, snap. Did you hear what Nick said about, and then unfortunately with the news cycle and the things go on, right? There's no repercussions for, the people who went on Facebook and said, don't eat at that restaurant because, don't eat at that restaurant. They're commies or something. And I'm just speaking off the wheel now, but in the end, what happens if said restaurant goes out of business? Those people probably went bankrupt. They're probably in some financial turmoil. The landlord now has a tenant who's not paying rent. We have yet another vacant property that people are going to drive by and see in Eureka, California. So people have paid the price, but where's the accountability for somebody who, put fuel on that fire?
It's non-existent.
Exactly.
The picture thing for you is almost crazy because it's a president. The guy was president at the time.
He was the acting president of the United States of America.
And how many people would just want to go talk to him just to say hi, because it's a president?
Right. Well, I remember Bill Clinton came here after he was after he was in office. And I forget, I don't know if he was stumping for Hillary Clinton or whoever's running for governor. I don't remember. And I think he went to Redwood Acres to speak or something. I wasn't in town because I was bummed. Like, I wanted to go. How cool is that? Like, I mean, that's like a rock star coming to town, right? And so I wanted to be a part of that. And I remember people from the radio station, the local community who got a chance to go out there, and they loved it and had a great experience. And they shared that. And why shouldn't they? Whether it be a Republican or a Democrat. I mean, I think it's a memorable experience, to say the least, one way or the other.
Did you get to talk to him, or was it just you got to go up, take a picture?
So you got a second? I can give you the story.
Yeah, lay it out.
All right. So it's my buddy's 40th birthday. Eric Pearson, Matt Fordion, Vika Escadanya, and myself. We're on a 10-day trip through Ireland, and our excuse is essentially golfing. And it's a trip we planned out. We booked about 18 months in advance. So Doonbeg is the course that we will eventually run into the president at. And he also owns this golf course. And unbeknownst to me at the time, but not that it mattered. It's a classic course. It's been there for over 100 years. So regardless of who owned it, I was going to go. Okay. So fast forward, I call the pro shop like 5 days beforehand to cancel a caddy request. These first world problems. Because I realized I want to talk to my friends while I'm golfing. I don't want to. First world problems. When you talk to caddies, like, you're out there and you're having the same conversation. What do you do for a living? Do you have any kids? You married? And it's like, I want to talk to my boys. I'm on this trip. We're having a good time. So I call to make, and they're like, oh, hey, just to let you know, your golf round might get interrupted. I'm like, okay. Are we going to get to play 18 holes? Oh, yeah. He's all, just FYI, the president of the United States is going to be here that day. He likes to play fast, so if he plays 3, you have to let him. And I'm like, that's nuts. So fast forward a few days later, we're driving into the town of Lahinch. Doonbeg sits right outside of Lahinch. And it's very similar to America, right? Like, you start to see American flags. Some are upside down, some are right side up. Like, half the people hate, half the people are like, okay, blah, blah, blah. So then the next day we go out there, but it's Irish Army, it's military. Like we have to go through multiple checkpoints. People are like, you can't go. And like, what are you doing? Like, oh, we're golfing. Like, you can't golf today. And they call the pro shop. I'm like, sure enough. So we get through, we finally get out and we're going and we're playing. We're out on the golf course and we're getting waved down. We're getting, wanded. We had to give our passports to get in. It's the president of the United States. You can hear the F-16s above. There's like a battleship or destroyer out there. It's crazy. And there's dudes in suits everywhere. So I make the comment to one of the guys. I'm like, hey, do you think I can get a president or a picture of the president? I mean, I want to document this. This is nuts. Because nobody will believe you, right, that this is happening. And he blows me off. I ask a couple more people and it dawns on me like, they're Secret Service. Like, they don't give a shit about me. And their job is not to make sure the president can take selfies with these idiots who are on their golf trip. So fine, forget about it. And my friends always make fun of me too for being too loud and boisterous. So we're through the round. We think it's never going to happen. We're coming down 13 and you happen to pass the cross stand again on 9 and he's coming down 8. He's got an entourage of about 150 people. He's probably 100 yards from us. And I'm like, this is nuts. Like, here's the most famous / infamous person in the world right now. And you see him right there. Like, this is bananas. So I'm there and I'm getting a beer at the turn stand and his official photographer is up and she's getting a water. So I'm like, hey, can you ask the president if we can get a photo? She's like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So I watch her walk back over to the president's about to tee off. She's not even talking to him. And I'm like, all right, nobody's like, I'm on my own here. So sure enough, the 3 guys he's playing walk out of the bathroom. 3 tall white guys who look like golfers. What do you know? I fit the bill. So I just start walking with these guys. Boom. I'm getting through Secret Service. Nobody's paying attention. I'm like, boom. So I get within like 30 yards and this guy grabs me. He's like, are you with them? And I was like, no. He's like, well, you can't come any closer. So I just buck up, put my hands together. I'm like, Mr. President. Screams like, can we get a photo? I make the camera, picture. And he just looks. And you can see the Secret Service people like mortified, right? And he just waves us over. I'm like, this is nuts. So I adrenaline is running like nothing I've ever felt. Like, this is going to happen. So I kind of start in a sprint. The same guy grabs me and he's like, walk. Don't run. Fair enough. And anyway, so we got up to him and we're like, oh, Mr. President, can we take a photo? Thank you so much. And he's like, what do you think of the golf course? Just small talking. And then he goes, where are you guys from? And the 2 guys were like, we're from Texas. And he was all excited about that. And my buddy and I were like, we're California. And he just laughed. And so we take said photo. And as we're walking away, you could tell that he's a celebrity or because we're walking away. He goes, guys. And we turn around and we're like, yes, sir, Mr. President. He's like, make sure it's a good photo before you take off. And posted the photo about an hour later and the rest is history.
It's a professional right there.
He definitely was not his first rodeo, that's for sure.
Way to stick with it. I mean, talk about persistence.
Hey,
man.
I was on a mission. I wanted proof that happened because I knew it's a day I'd never forget. So, and I needed people to, I needed proof to see it, to know it happened. And so I have that proof now, whatever it's cost me. Who knows what sort of relationships it's cost me. That's the only time I think my mother's been truly disappointed in me.
But worth it.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got to.
I'd do it again in a
crazy
heartbeat.
experience.
Absolutely. In a heartbeat.
Was he nice? Was he pretty cool when he was chatting with you guys?
Yeah. I mean, it all took place in probably 30 seconds. But yeah, it was very just like, what do you think of because he owns the course now. And he's like, what do you think of the course? And it was just small talk, but there could have been more. I'll be honest, Nick, my adrenaline level was just kind
of blacked out there for a minute.
I did. There was a 3-minute span of my life. Again, I probably needed the photo for me so I know it actually happened. Because if not, I'm like, did that actually? Yeah, it was, the adrenaline was pumping. It was just I can't believe that really happened.
Yeah, and completely unplanned. What a crazy experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then I'm leaving. So 2 days later, we're leaving and I'm in customs. And when you go through customs in Ireland to get back into America, you actually go through, they have a U.S. customs in the airport. And I'm convinced that I've been golfing and maybe having a few Guinness and Jameson. So I'm, looking a little beat up. And for whatever reason, the thing won't pick up my face when they're trying to facial ID you going back through. And he's like, you're not popping up here. I was like, well, it was a 10-day golf junket and I've been a little hard on myself. And he's like, oh, did you know the president was here golfing? I was like, yeah, I did. He's like, He's all, let me guess, you played with him, right? And I was like, well, no, but I got a photo. And the guy's like, he's like, no, you didn't. And then I showed him the photo and he laughed and he let me through security. So
case in point right there. People don't believe it without proof.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. It was just proof. Love it or hate it. So me and Trace Picos have that in common, whether it's the president or don't cancel us, please.
Well, the ironic thing is how many people would have done the exact same thing. They were shitting on you in that moment if they had the opportunity.
I mean, literally people were like, I can't believe you didn't do anything. What was I going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? Attack the president?
Be like, oh, hey, first, I would never do that, period. But it's like, oh, yeah, rest in peace, JB, who got, murdered by the 100 Navy SEALs and Army. Like, these were bad, like, dudes that could do bad things. Like, you want to talk about security detail? That man had a security detail, okay? Like, probably nobody else.
Yeah, I don't like your odds in that situation.
It's not going to go well. I wanted to play more golf and have another Guinness, so that was definitely not happening. But yeah, people were spirited one way or the other.
Do you ever think about the cancellation thing? Are you pretty protected because it is you're in a smaller market?
No, I think it's worse in a smaller market
because everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows each other. I think whatever you say, like forget even saying stuff on air. Like everybody knows everybody, I feel like, in Humboldt County. So even if I say something to you off the air, like, I'm just convinced it'll get back to other people. I just think you have to, just be conscious of what you say. I mean, I think good radio or good entertainment is not being a robot or not trying to go out and offend people. But at the same token too, yeah, you're one off the color comment. Like, I'm sure there are things that I've said in 2022 when I first started on radio, or 2000, many years ago, that were unnoticed then, that today, like, the pitchforks would be out and people would just be like, get rid of them. But I think in the end, you gotta be yourself, and you gotta be candid, but live by the golden rule, say, don't disparage people or other stuff on the air. Be treated like the way you would want to. But you have to be yourself too. If you try, and I'm sure you've been doing this for 4 years. If you try and you're going to go out and do a podcast, or I'm going to do a radio show for people, I don't think it's going to be good. Like, you got to be true to yourself. And quite frankly, if you're doing a good job, then that probably means some people don't like you and some people do. I mean, the last thing you want to be is, and of course, there's always the accountability aspect. I don't want to say like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, which I probably am at this point, but you have to be interesting. If you're going to make it in media, I think you have to be interesting. Charles Barkley, right? Like, he is the king of color commentary, at least in the NBA, and I'd say he's probably the best there's going. He doesn't, he lets it fly, right? But I don't know if he gets a hall pass because he's been around for so long, or people love the Chuck because he's like your uncle, and certain guys can't do that. But I don't know. I think if you really try to, like, it's like, my goal is not to offend people today. Is that something people really want to consume?
Well, is it something that's even authentic at that point? You have to kind of self-censor yourself to fit into this mold you think you have to be in to do the thing.
Right. The good news is you're not going to get fired. The good news is, or the bad news is, you're probably not going to get hired by anybody, because it's not interesting. I mean, the bottom line is, like, if you want people to tune into your podcast, it's got to be interesting, or like, what value, am I getting? So, like, I know when you reached out to me the other day, so I was like, all right, I'm going to take a listen. And then I scrolled through and I was like, okay, so I'm going to listen to, the interview you had with Kim Burgell. So it's like, all right, well, here's the mayor. So, okay, for you, that's a great position, because you're going to get the mayor of Eureka on, and clearly people want to know what the leader of our city has to say, or at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody's going to watch this, because I don't think I'm going to give a shit what I have to say.
I'm surprised anybody watches any of them. Yeah. Yeah. How do you be interesting? Have you learned anything from your stint in radio so far? Because I think about that. I mean, when I think of radio, I think of Howard Stern.
Right.
But I wasn't around for that era. Like, I didn't see him in his prime.
So, like, his movie's really good. If you look at, like, Private Parts, and, it's like, one of the great things in that movie, they talk about the average listener who loves Howard Stern listens for 5 minutes. The average listener that hates Howard Stern listens for 18 minutes, right? So Here was Howard. Whether you love him or hate him, he was interesting. So he got, like polarizing. So back to sports, the reason the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Cowboys get put on TV all the time isn't simply because they're America's team, but when they're on, you're going to have as a sports fan, you're going to have an opinion. You either love the Yankees or can't stand the Yankees. You either love the Cowboys or you hate the Cowboys, right? So like, I hate the Cowboys. So guess what? When they're on, I'm probably going to watch because I want to see them lose. Well, people listen to Howard Stern because they wanted to see him win or lose. But I think, right, he was the shock jock, the original. And so he found a way to walk the line legally, what the FCC would allow and would not allow. And he got people's attention. Like, would I love to have a career like Howard Stern? Sure. Like, who wouldn't want all those millions of dollars and all those listeners? But like, my thing is, I'm not Howard Stern. So like, I just couldn't do that because if I tried to be Howard Stern, in my opinion, it'd be, it wouldn't be authentic, and it would be very transparent that I was trying to be someone that I am not. So I think you just have to you got to find your niche and go with who you are and,
see what happens.
See what happens.
Do you think that he was really that guy? Or do you think he kind of built up the shock jock persona and was doing this stuff knowing that it's sensational, that people are going to buy into it?
Oh, yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, if you think, yes, I think a lot of it was his on-air persona. I mean, I think if you look at his life, right, he's a family man who's been married twice. He divorced his wife and was a bachelor for a little bit and then, got into another relationship he's been for 25 years. I think if you listen to his show, you would think he's like some sort of Hugh Hefner and different women each night. And that's like, what he kind of portrays or that lifestyle. But if you look at the facts, he appears to be quite the opposite. Now, I don't know. I haven't run into, Howard on a golf course or never met Howard Stern, but I definitely think it's a persona. To say the least, that the shock jock that he puts on. And but I think it's definitely within his belief value and things of that nature. I mean, I don't think that just popped up out of nowhere, but to his credit, he's had a hell of a career and now he's kind of getting blowback because a lot of people feel that he's kind of, as he's aged, he's the opposite guy of who he used to be. And I could tell you, I have Sirius XM and I'll listen to Howard from time to time. I think he's a great interviewer. And I really like when he has somebody on that I'm interested in, I'm going to tune in because I know he's going to do a thorough job and he's going to do a great interview. And he's probably going to get answers that I want to know that normal people can't pull out of said celebrity or interesting person. To me, that's interesting. And you listen to him interview. I think anybody who does interviews, you probably like take notes from this guy. But like the shtick or like the phony phone calls or guys talking about their bowel movements, for me, it doesn't really move the needle.
Do you think that you listen more now for the guest than for Howard?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like I'll tune in if he has a guest on, then I'll listen. Or I do like when him and Robin talk about the news, and kind of give their spins on different stuff. But yeah, when he's got his like cast of characters and they're going off on some of these tangents, like, I mean, it's not that I have a problem with it, but there's just other stuff
that's more interesting
I would, listen to.
He's interesting in that he built that persona and was able to maintain it. And you're right, he's kind of shifted now. He's almost flipped.
Right.
To the
I mean, but
opposite.
I assume as we all get older, things change a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, can you be a
doesn't change.
65-year-old guy having,
His
22-year-old girls on and you're throwing baloney at their backside? Like, I don't know how that hits anymore. Maybe when he was 25, it was okay. And as we talked about, right, like what's acceptable is also changed as well. I mean, how did Howard not get canceled? Plenty of people would have loved to cancel him back in the day.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what he would do if he was starting out today.
Absolutely.
If he would still try to build up that shock jock persona and go to the extreme, or if society would kind of corral him a little bit.
Right, or never, or maybe what if he starts today? Now you could say, right, he was the pioneer, so who knows where we'd be today. But let's just say social media and everybody with their shock value is already out there. Are you even going to notice Howard Stern? Is he
That's a
just
good point.
another, another shock, or
Just
another
gets
people
drowned
trying
out.
he gets drowned out because here's this, this guy who's, just trying to get clicks or get listeners by doing XYZ.
Well, can you even maintain a career, let alone build one in today's
right?
world?
And so I think that's another kudos to him. Like he said, what, 40, 50-year radio career, long time. And I mean, SiriusXM keeps giving him, $100 million contracts. So clearly somebody's still tuning in. And so, I mean, I pay for my subscription. And I think part of that is also when you live in Humboldt County, if you like road trips,
you gotta,
between radio reception and cell phones, you kind of, if you're going to drive to Reading, you better have satellite radio or downloaded different podcasts. Cause I'm not a big music guy on long road trips. Like I got to be thinking about other stuff. So I need something to occupy. I'll be listening to your podcast. I'll download that or something on the next road trip. But yeah, I think if you drive outside of the greater Eureka, Humboldt Bay area, satellite radio is a necessity. Because I mean, the cell phones don't work for half of $2.99. So it's not like you can just stream your favorite whatever you got going on.
Yeah, it'd be a long road trip in silence if you tried to go that route.
Yeah.
Nobody
well, I'll leave that
wants
for my dad. My dad likes the silent road trips. Me, not so much.
Yeah, I don't know. It's part of me is happy that, I mean, you have to look at how he pioneered it and what he did. And he definitely kind of paved the road for radio in general, definitely for podcasting, just going off the walls like that.
Right, because he's not a traditional, like, if a lot of you, or, you listen to radio, you probably don't pay much attention to it. But look, there's probably 8 minutes worth of content and 3 minutes worth of commercials, and they just rinse and repeat. Well, he may go an hour and a half if he's got a good interview going, right? So, and that's, podcasts and stuff, that's totally common now, but you didn't do that back in the day. That's just not how it was. So he, I think, definitely, paved the road for a lot of different, for this type of format, you could call it. Well, let me ask you, Nick, why did you get into this?
I was going crazy because of COVID.
Okay.
There was a period where I didn't leave my house for like 3 months.
Okay.
And all I was consuming was shit online, on Instagram, on social media. And I just realized something had to change. And this seemed like the perfect format to get people to talk to me. Because you can't really just reach out to some random person and say, hey, do you want to go grab a coffee and just talk about what you're doing?
Kimber Gell might not want to just have random coffee with you.
Yeah, I don't think she would be interested in doing that.
I mean, she might. I don't know. But yes, it seems yes, I agree with you.
But it's like a captive audience because people are more so willing now. When I was starting out, you don't really have the back catalog. And so you're reaching out to people and they're like, who the fuck is this?
Right.
What do you want to do?
Right.
You've had 3 people on and I don't know any of them. What are we doing here? And now it's kind of, like you said with Kimber Gell, you kind of build up these people and then more people.
Right. Like I apologize. Don't take it the wrong way. Like I didn't know who you were before this.
No.
And so I just simply said, okay, well, where can I check out, what you're doing? So you told me, and then I was like, I looked through the list and I knew a lot of the people on there, but I'm like, all right, I want to hear what Kim has to say. And then I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, fuck, I should have asked Nick what he wants to talk about. Cause anyways, but I like the organic conversations. I don't think I like to interview people too. And so when I do, doing the Humboldt State game for years, right? Like I'm going to have a 5-minute interview with a subject. I don't want to talk to them beforehand and let the best stuff get out. And then you forget to ask that because you already, you knew the answer, but I know it's your show, but I'll ask one final question before we go. So you started the podcast, you want people to talk to you. What do you want the consumer of this podcast? Like what, if you overheard 2 people talking about your podcast, what would you hope they were saying about it?
I have no idea. I don't know who the consumer of the podcast is.
Okay.
Which
well, like when you have me on or Kim on or Scott Q. Marcus, is it just you want to talk to them or you want to, interview them and get, certain answers or ideas or where they sit on different stuff?
It's just I want to talk to them.
Okay.
That's kind of been my metric for all of them. It's just, do I think the guest is interesting? And it's hard sometimes, and sometimes it's bit me in the ass because some people don't have a social media presence or don't have anything online. So I'm reaching out to them really not knowing anything about them. And then it kind of backfires. You're like, oh, this was not.
Well, hey, it killed your curiosity.
Yeah.
Mission
but
accomplished.
I think that's the only way that this could be anything long term. If I'm reaching out to people for some alternate reason or because I think, if I bring this person on, people are going to want to listen. That just seems like a slippery slope. And then I'm doing this for people I don't even know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a fine line, right? Like you got to stay true to yourself. And then the same token too, you have to interview people that people want to hear from. So like,
That's the hard part.
Who are those people in this community, right? Like, I guess it depends if you're going the political aspect. I mean, you've got I'm sure Miles Slattery, the Rex Bones, you take, your different people who are involved with, possibly shaping the future of this community, or whether that's President Jackson, or just the people who are the personalities of the community, or maybe there's personalities or mover and shakers that, that we don't know yet.
The interesting part is the most challenging, because I used to have a guy who worked in here with me running tech, and we did a podcast, and it was pretty shitty.
Okay.
And we're talking about it afterwards, and I was like, man, that was rough. And he went home that night and he was talking to his buddy, and his buddy made the comment of, well, who cares about what this guy is, like, his organization or what he's affiliated? Right. Like, who cares? Why are you talking about this? Because he wasn't part of some big group. He wasn't doing anything really crazy. It was just this kind of small time thing.
Right.
I was like, yeah, that's kind of a good point. Like, who cares about this topic? So I thought it was going to be interesting. It wasn't panned out. But deeper than that, is the story behind it interesting? Is there any value in that? And sometimes there's not. Sometimes somebody's just doing something and there's no deeper meaning.
Right. But you got to shoot and find out.
You got to shoot. And sometimes you get burnt. That's the hard part.
Yeah. It's an imperfect science. And yeah, do people care? Like, I could have taken a photo that day golfing with the most conservative person in the world, and maybe nobody would have given a shit. But the fact that it was Donald Trump, nobody gave a shit about me and my three buddies in that photo. I mean, quite frankly, I thought it was a great photo. I liked it because, I was fit and nice, and I was like, hey, this is great. Nobody saw me in that photo, okay? Nobody gave two shits. So yeah, I think for you or whomever's doing stuff, it is finding maybe that happy medium of doing stuff you want. And look, like, I could do a podcast on, my favorite holes of the golf courses in Humboldt County, or who's got the best greens, or this, that, and the other. I really don't think too many people would give two shits, except for me and a couple other golf dorks around here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the experience yet to charter my path. So I'm branching.
Well, what? Okay, so you've got 100. How many episodes?
I think this is 157.
Okay, so let me ask you this: do you think the most reaction you've gotten from different episodes has been based on how good you thought the interview was, or who the guest was, or what they said, or just maybe it was you thought it was a shitty interview, but you had somebody on that, oh, I want to hear what so-and-so has to say. Or again, maybe like your tech buddy, holy hell, that was fascinating and he was great, but people are going through the Spotify and they're like, ooh, Jim Smith, radio technician. Think I'm going to pass on that one, right?
Yeah, it happens.
So, I mean, what guest has gotten the most reaction out of all the shows you've done? And do you think it was your best interview?
You know what's interesting? If off the top of my head, I think it was back when Karen Paz Dominguez was on. And I think it's just
that was a hot topic going for a while.
I think that's why, is it just kind of took off because people didn't understand what was going on, but they knew something was happening, that there's some shady stuff going on in the auditor controller's office, but they're only getting one side of the story.
So that's great stuff.
But I didn't think it was going to be, I was just interested because I'm reading all this stuff online and it seemed one-sided and I couldn't really paint a full picture.
Right, well, that whole thing, right? Like, the story's getting told by the other side. Nobody's hearing from what
the person directly involved.
I mean, it's an old adage, right? There's two sides to every story. So, the people on the other side of that kerfuffle, we'll call it, because I don't completely understand everything that happened. I'll be the first to admit, but they were the only ones really seem to be providing information. So yeah, I'm sure that was great. And that's what people love. Like, okay, what does she have to say about what's going on? Because I think as a consumer, that's what we felt devoid of. Like, okay, what does she have to say? What's the other side of this story? Or how is she going to defend herself? Because everything I'm hearing isn't very good.
Is that how you frame your interview? Are most of them sports related when you're doing your interviews?
Yeah. Yes. I look at it, I try to put myself in the consumer, but I think me and my consumer are similar. Like, if you're listening to sports radio, probably a good chance we have some things in common. So what do I want to know? What do I want to know about said person? Now, granted, I've done plenty of interviews with non-sports people, and I just, look, they're 3 to 5 minutes. So I'm really sticking to the who, what, where, why, when. And then that's where I'm going to start. But if something you say, I mean, I think the best thing somebody can do during an interview, and this is a foreign concept for a lot of people, listen to what they're saying. And if they say something that triggers a question, okay, the door is open. I want to know more about that. So instead of why, I'm going to do a follow-up on X. Right? I mean, I think that's the key. I'm blown away, and people do this at all levels. They've got their list of 5 questions. All right, Nick, what's your favorite color? And you go, JB, I'm colorblind, and I hate colors, and when I see colors, they make me angry. Okay, what's your favorite dog? Like, no, like, what do you mean you don't like color? I know that's a stupid example, but they asked you a question, and now they're thinking about what I'm going to ask you next. Instead of listening to the subject, what are they saying? And is it bringing up another question? Because they're probably, I mean, your interviewee is probably going to lead you down a much better road than you thought. Like, you can Google, okay, JB Mathers has been on the radio, sells some real estate, has photo taken with Donald. Like, okay, whatever. And then, but then you listen. What actually is there substance to this person? What do they have going on? And I think, right, as a consumer, you've heard interviews before, like last night. The gal is interviewing, classic example, Joe Burrow is their player of the game, Monday Night Football, they won. He's dealing with a calf injury. She says, Joe, how does the calf feel? This is after the game. And he goes, well, we did great. We feel awesome. And we're excited for next week. So no more damage to the calf? Yeah, it was a great game. We won. We're having fun. He's clearly fucking avoiding the question. And personally, at that point, I think she should have pinned him down and said, Joe, how does your calf feel? Or just try to acknowledge the fact that he clearly is avoiding the answer. Okay, so clearly the calf's hurt. He doesn't want to answer. But then she let him slide. And she said, oh, how about that run from Joe Mixon? What's up with the calf, bro? Tell me about, or at least just direct, straight shot, or, the fact that I thought there was a story there, the fact that she, I think she let him off the hook, and he was, clearly not, and, I think she should have asked one more time, but anyway, she moved on, and whatever. I mean, that's a hard part of also, too, when you're interviewing people, you have relationships, and you talk about accountability. Well, if she goes and shits on Joe Burrow, are, the Bengals going to give her access to him anymore? And then ESPN's pissed off because they want to talk to the biggest stars. I mean, some poor guy for the OC Register down in Orange County, he got shut out by USC. He was in a public room before a press conference, and 2 players were next to him talking. And again, so what's he trying to do? He's trying to be accountable to his boss and his followers, providing information that people can't get about USC football elsewhere. Okay, it was not a private conversation. It was held in public in front. He wrote a story about what was said at that conversation. And USC said, we don't like it. You can't be around the team for a month. How's that guy supposed to do his job?
That's a tough spot to be in.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics. Like, I mean, I've covered Humboldt State, Cal Poly Humboldt now for years. And, whether it was rest in peace, Humboldt football, and we need to bring that back, or, whether it's covering the basketball team, the men's, the women, I'm on the road. Like, I'm talking to these players. I see them, the coaches, not as much the players, but the coaches you develop relationships with. And I'm not going to shit on one of the coaches during a broadcast. Twofold. One, I'm working for the university at the time, but just as a human being, like I'm not going to take a cheap shot at, somebody because they made a mistake or they did whatever. But so I guess being accountable to the university. I have a relationship with her, but then I might get, I've been criticized plenty of times by fans of like, why don't you, the team played like shit. Why didn't you call them out on it?
Throwing softballs.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I'm the king of a softball interview. I'm the first to admit it. Like, I don't, I think, yeah. So here I shit on Laura Rutledge but it's just, again, there's a lot that goes into it. But so if the team's playing like shit and I've got to talk to the coach about it, I'm not going to be like, boy, coach, what are you even doing out there? Your team looks terrible, which like maybe a shock jock or somebody's looking for me. I'm going to be like, hey, coach, I know the team's working really hard. You guys just haven't quite lived up to your performance. Can you kind of take us behind the curtain, let us know what's going on? I think that to me, that's the same question, but in a softball form.
Do you think you lose something by asking it in that way? Or do you think you have to frame the question that way in order to actually get a response?
I'm not a confrontational person. And so I'm not trying to confront or be negative connotation. I think I asked the same exact question, and now the coach is going to answer it, opposed to, if I just say, well, coach, your team looks awful. What are you guys even doing at practice? How does this happen? Like, that's me leading with a negative connotation, right? That's a loaded question negatively. I don't think that now the coach is just on defense, and they're on defense, and I think they're going to be pissed off at me. So how does that affect me moving forward? Well, now the coach doesn't want to, they're not going to want to, like when I want to know what's going on, hey, why isn't so-and-so playing? I don't know, JB, check the injury report. Hey, coach, can I get an interview with this player so I can, because I like to interview. So when I do a game, I like to interview the coach in the pregame, and then I like to interview a player at halftime. And it's not so much X's and O's. I think it's an opportunity for people to get to know these kids, what do you like to do? Why did you come to Humboldt? Everyone's got the story of, I don't care if you're into sports or not. Everybody has the how the hell did I end up in Humboldt story, right? So that's so, and especially at the college, like how did you get in? Usually, I love the beach or the people or, and so you want to get to know these people. So for me, the relationships are important. And if they can trust me, I think they're more in tune to give honest answers opposed to, one of the girls hears that, I'm shitting her on her the entire game because she can't, hit a 3-pointer, and her parents are telling her. And then I'm like, hey, Sally, can I get an halftime interview? No, you can't. So it's different how close you are to it. Whereas national media can be different, or Howard Stern can be different because he doesn't care about that relationship when it's over or done with.
Have you ever had to, it's interesting framed in that way because those are just, you're almost taking the same question, but asking it in a way where you're not offending the person.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Have you ever not asked a question, even if it was framed correctly, because you were worried about?
Yeah. Well, I've had coaches blatantly tell me before an interview, don't ask me that. Don't ask me why so-and-so's not playing. Or they'll tell me, hey, look, so-and-so's not playing because we're working on an attitude adjustment. As far as we're concerned, they're sick today or something like that. And yeah, I'm not going to throw the coach under the bus for that, or I'm not going to, if they asked me something or told me something in confidence, then yeah, I'm going to keep it that way. Absolutely. Whereas if I was just there's the guy who writes for the Times Standard right now. He's been very upfront about, digging in and going to the school. And I know there's been a lot of friction in that relationship, but that's his style. Right. And I think as a consumer, right, like it's probably, the consumer probably enjoys the fact that, instead of JB's, buddy interview with Coach Norwood, Jake is, asking how this team, lost this game and such but it's also styles. I'm not a confrontational person, or I'm not trying to catch. I want to see people at their best, not their worst. Me personally.
Has that been kind of an ethos that you've developed? Did you start in radio thinking that?
No, I think it's just personality. I think my parents taught me about the golden rule. And so it's like, how would if I was getting interviewed, I wouldn't want, I'm not at the stand at a jury trial. And also too, we're talking about college sports.
Yeah, Humboldt different than State. If you were not interviewing a politician
if it's a pro, somebody who's getting paid millions of dollars, or when you get a chance to sit down with, Rex or Miles or Kim or whatever, they are politicians, and I guess Miles isn't a politician, but regardless, these people are making very important decisions that affect our city, our county, our community. So I do think there's also a different level of seriousness and what goes into it. So yeah, if I'm sitting across from Rex and somebody's asking me, about the grandstands or something or whatever is an issue that people may have a hot button in his district. I would be more direct with him than not. Like, I mean, I know when we had Rex on, Rollins got a relationship with him. So like when the rolling power outs were going on, Bladen, Rex, what the hell's going on? That's the question. Cause I think that's the question too people wanted to know. When the pandemic first started and we first caught wind of masks, and we're like, are we going to have mask mandates in Humboldt County? And he's like, yeah, it's probably going to happen. What? Because it's so like foreign concept. And now you think back, it's like, yeah, everyone is going to do it. So I just think there's a time and a place for everything.
That's something I feel like I struggle with still, is asking the tough questions and applying pressure when it's necessary.
Right. Well, okay, accountability. Are you willing to get, are you willing to handle the response they may give you? Because they might be critical of you in return too. Hey, coach, team sucked today. What happened? Well, I don't know, JB, but I listened to people who heard your broadcast and said it was absolutely atrocious, and they wonder if English is your first language. I'm not strong enough.
That's a pretty good comeback too.
So, right? So It's just like, you also have to be accountable for your actions. And right. So like, the writer for the Times Standard, he's made it clear that he's coming after the university for his stuff. So, and I assume he's comfortable with it because, that's his MO, that he's the one who's got to go back on campus and get the dirty looks or, feel that iciness or that friction for the coach. Now, I say kudos to the university for not being like USC and saying, hey, you can't come up here. Open door, he can cover it. But, I'm sure he's well aware that there are, there are consequences and there's, different stuff. And maybe he wants that hard-hitting interview with one of the players or the coaches, and they're just going to say no. But again, that's just part of being a human, right? You get it, and everyone's got a different style.
Something interesting that I read about interviewing as a style is that you almost have to treat each interview as if it's your first and your last.
Okay.
You have to be willing to burn the bridge in order to have any real substance in that interview.
Right.
And it's twofold, like you said, because if you burn the bridge, you're not going to get access to that person ever again.
Right. And that's true. And that probably is, right? I mean, like, who are some of the greatest interviewers ever? Mike Wallace. Okay. He's going to go on 60 Minutes. He's got a goddamn blowtorch and he's going after it. And as a consumer, I love it because I know he is going to put these people in the hot seat and hold them accountable for what they need to do. I'll never forget one of my first interviews I did. Somebody was super nervous, and I just say, "Hey, look, I'm not Mike Wallace. Like, just chill out here. I'm trying. My goal is to make you look good. I want to hear it. So, but it's again, that's on a national. How long would Mike Wallace lasted if he was burning bridges like that in Humboldt County? There's only so many bridges around here. Now, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, and that guy is so talented, he would have rose to the crop and ended up in New York City and on 60 Minutes. But what if he doesn't? What if he burns all the bridges and then what are you left with? So that probably is a great interview style if it's people you're never going to interview again or you're willing to do that. And it's just not my style. But again, I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. And yeah, as a consumer, I think there's a time and a place. And yeah, I'm sure you do, right? If there's some politician or some coach or some sports figure that has done something that I don't agree with, like, there's nothing worse than somebody like Ahmad Rashad was like the Michael Jordan guy, right? Like that was Michael's guy. And that's the only one Michael will talk to. Yeah, because all he did was ask Michael softball questions. Well, as a consumer, I want to know, dude, did you play baseball because you were gambling? Flat out. Why did you play baseball for a year? Oh, because I decided to give it a try. Okay, so it had nothing to do with gambling. No, Ahmad's going to be soft like JB Mathers. Michael, so you thought you could hit the fastball, huh? Oh, yeah, so I figured to give it a go. So, different ways.
Yeah. Well, and then you have, Larry King, who was notorious for the perception of throwing softballs, but he got the guest, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who won't go on Tucker Carlson or they won't go on Joe Rogan or they won't do stuff because they don't want to talk to that person. And I think Larry King had an ability of, he had an hour. So he would I think he was like your buddy, or you were having a beer. He gave me the impression like they were having a beer or a cocktail together, and he'd ask questions, and I think he'd slowly work his way in there. But you get like, let's say Sean Hannity or something. Like they want to be combative. They're looking to get sparks fly. Like they want the person to walk out of the interview, and he's made a lot of money doing it. So I understand why he wants to do it, but is he getting big time guests on again? Or is it, Larry King got the guest. And I don't think everything has to be the burn bridge. Like, okay, here are two shows that I love. I love watching 60 Minutes. They're burning bridges, they're going after stuff, but I also love CBS Sunday Morning. It's fucking Jane Pauley, okay? It's butterflies, it's soda pop, it's bubble gum. Great show. She's not burning any bridges, okay? So I guess the moral of the story is I don't think there's a steadfast way to do one thing or the other.
Do you think it's just finding where your personality fits in that style?
Well, again, back to the Howard story, you got to be who you are, right? Like if you ran into me at the grocery store, I was dealing with a clerk, I don't think you would catch me being combative because they rug up my thing wrong or somebody cut in line, right? So I just don't think it's in my style to be abrasive or combative. So that's, it's just not, it's not in my wheel. I'm not saying I can't be combative, but you really have to irk me for that to happen. So I just think back again, you got to be who you are. It would be inauthentic if I came on here and was like, all right, bro, 30 minutes, fucking ask what you want. Hurry up. Let's go. Dude, that's a dumb question. Like, who cares? Or something like that. It's not who I am. And I think you got to be true to who you are. And I bet there are going to be people who are, maybe even some people I've mentioned that are possible interview subjects who will be combative. And that's a little more their style. And quite frankly, Nick, I'm here for it. I'll get my popcorn out. I will listen because I want to, hear somebody get a little irritated or irate, or even like, let's say you get Miles on, okay, the city manager. And you don't have to ask him, dude, what is up with those like poles on Fairway Drive, right? That's you coming after him. But you could simply say, Miles, nice to have you on. Hey, question. I've gotten some emails and I've heard in the community, a lot of people are not pleased with these poles that have put on Fairway Drive. Take me about what was the reasoning behind putting that up? In my opinion, you just asked the same question, but now it's not you coming after the subject. It's simply asking a question instead of the negative connotation or being combative.
Yeah, being able to phrase a question like that is an art in itself. I don't think, when I'm talking about applying pressure, I don't think it's necessarily being combative. It's more so, especially the politicians are an easy one to point to because you have to apply pressure, otherwise you're not going to get anything of substance. But when I say that, it's not trying to, be a Sean Hannity or be a whoever. Just
I think it's simple as you don't then like take Laura Ruthridge again with the Joe Burrow. You just keep asking the question.
You hammer home.
You just Joe. She tried it the first time, he didn't answer. She tried it again. She let him off the hook.
It's like you with the president. You got to keep going.
You just, if she really wanted to know what's up with his calf, at some point, or just keep asking. Because I don't think he's just going to walk away. Because he's going to look like a huge dick if he just blows her off and walks away. At some point, he's going to answer the question specifically. Now, he might, but yeah, she let him off the hook. And again, there's a lot of different reasons for that, right? Like she has a relationship with the NFL, the team, and she asked. In her defense, she could be like, JB, I fucking asked him twice. He didn't answer it. I moved on. Okay, fair enough. But again, she didn't have, at no point was she ever going to be like, Joe, answer the effing question. It was not going to happen. But she could have, continued to, like Mike Wallace probably would have just continued to hammer Telly answer the question. So I just think it's life, right? There's multiple ways to go about it. But if you are interviewing someone and you are looking for a specific, not to say you should never steer them to get the answer you want, but yes, you want to know why, you put LED lights in here. I'm going to keep asking you, why you put LED lights when, I don't think I was much prettier before I came in here, and then I don't think these lights are good for my face. I'm being facetious, but you get my point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think part of it is just the skill that comes with time. I mean, you seem to have a very solid grasp on your style, on who you are.
Well, I'm 46. I've been doing it for 23 years now.
I know, but being in media can kind of corrupt a person or alter them, or you meet those people who are.
Well, who knows? Maybe I would have been awesome and way more friendlier if I hadn't been in it for 23 years. No, I just, again, a thing I love about radio in the morning is, it's not life or death. The hardest part of my day is getting up at 5 a.m. Literally, it's all downhill from there. And when you sell real estate, you also know that's a lot bigger stuff. Like, people are much more emotion. There's a lot more money involved. Like, as long as I don't just go completely off the rails, at the radio station, it's not the end of the world. It's just the Dodgers suck. I hate the Cowboys. And so, Cowboy fans are going to disagree with me, but in the end, we can still have a beer together. If I screw up somebody's multi-million-dollar real estate deal, dude, they're not having a beer with me. They're going to be pissed. And so maybe you can get more jaded. But I think one of the reason I got into radio in the first place, I was going to Humboldt State playing football. I had no clue what I wanted to do. My buddy's like, bro, we can get our own show on the college radio station. I'm like, ooh, yes, let's go. That sounds like fun. And then I just kind of stumbled into it, and one thing led to another. So I've always enjoyed it. I've always loved it, right? And so if you love it, look, if it jaded me, then I wouldn't do it anymore. Plain and simple. So,
yeah, the saddest thing to see is people just punching a card to cash a check.
Yeah, I mean, I've waited tables, I've done construction, and more power to those people who want to do. It's not my cup of tea. That's not like, I don't want to wake up being like, shit, I got to put my rain gear on and I need to pound nails. That's not me. Now, there are a lot of people and contractors, and they love it. Bless their heart. Like, right when they're done with a job, they've built something. It's nice. Somebody's going to get livid, and it's going to be their home. I guarantee you that is a gazillion times more rewarding than me being like the 49ers stomped all over, the Giants the other night. Right. So I don't experience those highs like when they're in the job. But at the same token, too, I'm not trying to lay concrete when it's 20 degrees outside and the wind's blowing down, or let's just leave it at this. It's a lot easier to be on the radio hungover than it probably is to be on a job site.
Yeah, I think that checks out.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Well, it's easy to see that you enjoy it and you're passionate about it, and you and
Absolutely.
Roland, you guys have a great chemistry. You guys are crushing it.
Well, I'm glad. I'm happy that comes across, because it is fun. I mean, we have a good time, and we're able to, take shots at each other and have some fun. But I think in the end, it's like, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We have fun doing it. And I just hope that comes through. I mean, in the end, right? People are taking their kids to school that are off to that shitty job they may not like. So let's listen to these two yahoos or whatever, at least, put a little bubble gum and butterfly in our life. I'm trying to be more Sunday morning than 60 Minutes.
I think that's the key, is just don't take yourself too seriously in anything.
That's probably a good thing in life. Like, again, you're never as good. You're never as bad. Don't take it too seriously. I mean, in the end, we're very lucky. We live in a beautiful community. We have our health, able to pay the bills and have a roof over our heads. So, sure, I'd love to have a private jet, but it's not the end of the world.
All right. Well, JB, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it. Had a great time. I hope you get more than one click on this one. And, you didn't burn the bridge. So anytime you need anything, or you're really hard for a guest, all you need to do is reach out.
Yeah, we'll do another one. Maybe We'll crack some beers in an evening podcast.
And
do you want to plug all of your stuff, where people can find you, where they can listen to the show?
Sure. You can find me on any of the bi-coastal media stations. That's Big Red Country, 92.3, Rollin' and I. Power 96.3 with Lugnut. Cool 105 with the Rock and Roll Burly Man. When basketball season starts, I'll be back with my Jacks calling Humboldt State, Cal Poly Humboldt basketball games on ESPN 107.3. And if you want to see the photo of me and Donald Trump, Mathers84. That's my Instagram handle.
All right, definitely. I will check that out for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.